Hello, Hannah the Suburban Witch here, and today I'm doing an unboxing video of the Ghetto Tarot. In today's video, we'll take a look at the Ghetto Tarot and what the packaging is like, what the card quality is like, and the imagery itself, how it reads, and the general vibe of the deck itself. Now, this deck was created with Alice Smeets, who was the photographer and deck creator, and a lot of people who she is friends with who had a lot of fun in the project, finding out ways to recreate these original pictures with what they could find around them. Now, I was originally a little bit cautious going into this deck, just because I am a white person and the deck creator is a white person from Belgium, and it was a little bit hesitance to jump into something like this. But upon listening to what she had to say and hearing that 20% goes to all of the people that were photographed, it was a collaborative effort. It's not exploiting the people of Haiti, and she lived there and she was friends with them, and it was a collaborative art effort. That made me feel a lot more confident in supporting this deck and supporting the people that are in the deck as well. So if that's something that you're concerned about, she's done an interview on this topic that goes into more depth, and she's always happy, the deck creator is always happy to answer questions about it, which I think is fantastic as well. The link to the interview that she refers to is found at the Instagram channel at tarot_in_the_city. So let's crack into it, shall we? I'm just going to read what the back of the deck says. It's colourful, it's avant-garde, it's stunning, it's the Ghetto Tarot. See the traditional tarot cards come to life in this creative, provocative, modern deck. The Ghetto Tarot is a photographic interpretation of the well-known traditional Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck set in the Haitian ghetto. These fresh scenes were inspired by those originally created in 1909 by the artist Pamela Coleman Smith. The Ghetto Tarot scenes were replicated by award-winning photographer Alice Smeets with the assistance of a group of Haitian artists called Artistes Resistants within the Haitian slums and using only local material. Inspired by the creativity and strength of the citizens of the Ghetto Tarot will guide you in changing your perception, turning negativity in your life into positivity while discovering the power of your own thoughts. Now, this deck is 78 cards, as it should be for a tarot deck, and a guidebook as well. Let's have a look. The box itself is pretty sturdy. It's not too flimsy. This is how it's all packaged together. So we have the guidebook on top. So we'll have a look at that first, shall we? So pretty standard. I can smell the printing press on the cards. Pretty standard. You guys know I'm a weirdo. I like the smell of my tarot decks. Pretty standard guidebook here, so just a simple one. It is black and white, so the pictures inside are not coloured. You can see that there. And then not a lot of information, but it's just all that you're really going to need. Let me give you an example. They seem to be bigger in terms of bigger descriptions for the major arcana and smaller descriptions for the minors. I'll give you an example of one of the minors. I just so happened to flip to one page where there is a slight spelling error just in terms of the Roman numerals used, which is a little bit confusing at first. It says 4 of machetes. I'm presuming machetes are swords. It should say 9, and you can tell that in the imagery. I've had a quick flick through at some of the other ones, and they are all correctly numeralized, so I do believe it's just a small typo. So for the 9 of swords, which is 9 of machetes, unfounded fears and nightmares, that rings true with the traditional meanings anyway. Light, so the positive aspects of it, facing up to facts, transformation and realizing the truth. Shadow, cruelty, pain, despair, anxiety, lack of pity and an overactive mind, which I would definitely say is all the case with that particular card. Times of great sorrow have the potential to be times of great transformation. When you face your fears head on, the reality is never as bad as imagined. So that is potentially how much you're going to get from the minor cards. We also have the person who is photographed listed in there with their full name. So that's a really cool addition to the guidebook as well. Now, if we look at one of the Major arcanas, for example, the Lover's card. Heart's decision, the archetype, Cupid and the crossroads. The light or the positive is love in all manifestations, union, harmony, relationships, values, alignment, devotion, free decision, coalition of the opposites, choices, inner exam, transformation, dependencies and dissolving. The shadow is imbalance, misalignment of values, hate, jealousy, doubts, divorce, unfaithfulness. Each decision for something is inevitably also a decision against something else. To gain one possibility, you have to let go of another option. The more you accept yourself with your strengths and weaknesses, the more lovable you become. Be responsible for yourself, choose between pleasure and duty, and decide each day how you would like to feel. And again, it does bring in the actors' names. It also mentions the sculpture that is shown in this card. So that is additional, and I can see they've done that with a few other ones throughout the guidebook. 2 small sculptures by Zaka. So this is basically referring to the different art pieces that we're going to be seeing in the cards. So that's really good that they're crediting where the art pieces that you see in the cards as well as the actors as well. So good guidebook. Now for the cards. Let's pop them out. So they are quite large. I would say I have a standard hand size. That's quite a big one. I'm going to compare it to my Rider Smith deck for you. This is my bruised and battered Rider deck in its original packaging. Now this one is a standard deck of cards, standard size. And you can see there, so height difference, not so much, but it's the width. So you can see the overlap there. And it might not look a lot in an image like this, but when you're holding it with your hands, that's quite significant. So slide off the paper there. Now the back of the cards is pretty cool. We can see already they're quite shiny, right? So always with shiny cards, not as good when you're taking photographs for social media, for readings, that sort of thing, because you can get a lot of reflection, but really great for shuffling generally. So let's see. Okay, shuffling is going to be, oh, that's a tad hard in terms of the size of them. I'm going to have to shuffle them vertically. So let's have a look how they shuffle. They've got a heft to them. It feels like quite a thick deck. The cards themselves don't feel thick, but there's a weight to them. I actually quite like it. I'm not able to shuffle them particularly fast because they are quite large. They're larger than my Rider Smith ones. But they shuffle really nicely. Again, when they're a little bit glossier, they shuffle smoothly. So for me, that is a nice card quality. Now let's have a look at some of these images. So the first thing that jumps out at me, I'll pull up this one here, is the 4 of Swords. Now with the guidebook, these are called 4 of Machetes, and we use machetes instead of swords. But it doesn't actually say any of that detail on the card. So you just need to know and recognize the imagery. Now, if you know the traditional Rider-Waite Smith, this is very much on point, and I absolutely love they've used this fragile packing box. It's fantastic. Now, it looks as though we have different names for the suits. We can see machetes are used instead of swords, and brooms are used instead of wands. Here we have the Queen of Wands, and doesn't she look beautiful? She has the black cat imagery on her dress, and she has a fiery broom in her hand. Cups are called cups, so that's nice and simple for you. We can see here 5 of cups, so we've got that traditional man standing facing away from the front of the card with his black cloak on, and his cups are tipped over. We have the traditional 3 tipped over, 2 still up, and a river of water. Okay, so we've got all that beautiful imagery, and there's even a pile of rubbish that you could use instead of a bridge to get over that river to the other side. So we've got all the traditional imagery still relevant in the card. Pentacles are called pentacles as well. So the only name changes you're looking at are swords and wands to machetes and brooms. We have the traditional couple that are out in the cold in the snow. I'm sure that was pretty hard to figure out how to do in Haiti. But it looks like they've used, I'm not even sure what they've used to get the imagery of snow, but it works. We get the same idea of what is in those traditional cards as well. One thing to note as well when it comes to the court cards, they all do seem to have the label of what the card is at the bottom. Same goes for the Major Arcana cards. So I'm going to bring up 2 here that have jumped out at me. The first one is the Sun card. Isn't that beautiful? We've got this lovely little boy, this happy little boy holding onto his horse with the beautiful sun in the background. Now, if you've seen any of my past life or reincarnation videos here on YouTube, you may know of my affinity for Louisiana and my past life stories from there. Now, if you know anything about Louisiana, you'd know there are a lot of people that were brought over from Haiti and enslaved in that area. That brings a lot of the influence into the New Orleans and surrounding areas. And so you really get the vibe of that New Orleans vibe of the cemetery through this card, which is the Judgment card. So for me, that sort of brings that feeling of homeliness to me, which is a very strange thing to say, but that is how I feel when I look at these sorts of cards. It feels really, really familiar to that Louisiana vibe as well. Check out the voodoo vibes in this card. This is our death card. Absolutely love it. Again, those Louisiana feels coming through just because of that link between the 2 areas. Now, I am pretty certain that those skulls in the background are real human skulls. That's what they look like to me anyway. I will say one thing I'm loving about this deck is the creativity in each of the cards. You can really see, I actually think there's a feeling of fun throughout it as well. I think people actually had a lot of fun putting this together. The other thing I really love is the strong themes that come through from your traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. So if you're well versed in that deck, you will have absolutely no problems converting to this one. It is very straightforward. The main symbols are represented in most of the cards that I've looked at so far. I also really love the quality of the imagery. It is very clear. These cards are not hard to look at all. I do have some other decks and they're quite small. You really have to take your time to look into them. But this, it's clear, it's crisp. You can tell it is a professional photograph that has been taken, and the printing process has been really, really kind to the images as well. It hasn't distorted them in any way. They are crystal clear. As you guys know, I'm always about representation in the spiritual community and in the tarot community specifically. Most decks are completely whitewashed. I've spoken about the melanated tarot deck before. That's a really great option, but something like this is another really great one to have more representation of more colors, of more people, and more diversity throughout our decks. Let's do a quick little reading here with the cards and just see how they feel and how they flow. So I'm going to just think on what's something I need to be focusing on for this week, what's something I need to be doing more of, and what's something I need to be releasing and doing less of. So let's have a look, shall we? Let's see how these spread. Now, again, that size, so the height of that card this way is, I'm finding it hard to hold and spread them out. So it may need to be 2 hands, but they spread really nicely. That's a beautiful spread. They're not sticking together. Again, the glossy cards always flow really nicely and they look more impressive when you're reading for people. Okay, so 2 cards here. We have the 10 of Wands, or 10 of Brooms, and the 2 of Swords. Now, often this card is read as a card of burdens. I often read it as well as going home and going home to rest. Remember, it's a 10. 10 is completion. It's the end of a cycle. It's finishing something. So for me, I'm actually getting the vibe for what I need to do this week is finish off or tie up any loose ends that I have, especially with my work. Just make sure that I'm not leaving things trailing away, that time's going to get away with me. So finish off those things and get them all squared away. That's how I'm reading this card, and it's really, it's coming through really nicely. Not hard to tune into. And the 2 of Swords, which we have here, or 2 of Machetes, often this is a card of decisions that need to be made. Now, swords in the tarot are often about thoughts, ideas, that sort of thing. And 2s are about duality and relationships. Now, whenever I pull this card, it always feels like you have to do something. You have to make a decision. You have to choose which way to go. You have to figure out what your options are. There might be 2 options and you may not have all of the information in front of you. And this actually feels like it really flows in with this one, which is that go home and rest, tie up all the loose ends and just take a little bit of a break. This is almost like stop trying to make so many decisions or trying to figure out which path to take or which way to move forward. Just take a little break. So I'm taking this, all of this, as just relax, don't stress too much. I did get an oracle card the other day as well that was telling me it's a life's work, not a season. So just to take it easy a little bit, which is perfect advice for someone with a 10-week-old baby. So all in all, the things that I really like about this deck, it's vibrancy. I love the fact that it is representing coloured people of all different shapes and sizes in a really beautiful way that they are involved in and that they get the profit as well from this deck. I love the creativity and the symbolism that is shown through the cards, and I really love the way that they shuffle and the way that they spread. They feel really nice. Things I'm not the biggest fan of is the size of the cards. If it came in a smaller sizing, I'd be really happy with that, just so that it fit in my hands a little bit easier. The glossiness can have an effect when I'm trying to take photographs of my cards, which I do use for my readings. And I'd actually love to see the name of the card on each of them. I'm one of those people, I will read the word much faster than taking in the symbolism until I've, really used them a lot of times. I just love having it written at the bottom. It just makes things easier for me. I also watch all of my TV with subtitles. That's just me. So personal opinion on that one. But I really like the vibe of it. I love the story behind the deck as well. And it's something that I absolutely recommend you give it a go. If you love the Rider Tarot and you just want something a little bit different, definitely check out the Ghetto Tarot. I hope today's video has given you a great look into these beautiful, unique cards. As always, I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world today. Bye for now.